Hello and welcome back for Traffic and Weather. Everything will probably be backed up in traffic because of the solar dances and system ballets. This is expected to continue until the standard New Year because of, well, your very Merry Christmas. So expect this to be going on for the next week. But sit back and watch the fireworks. Enjoy it while you can. This only happens once a year. Besides that, in weather, there are still solar storms going on in the Crab Nebula, so please watch out if you live near there. And it seems that there have been a couple of systems that might be moving out of place. Do not worry, the organizers of the solar ballets will be taking care of it. But now, on to the show. If there was a religious movement made around classical music, do you think it would be called botulism?
Why?
I want you to process that for
Why?
And that's the open. Welcome to the show. All right. It's probably the worst opening I've thought of in my life. It is the day after Christmas as of this posting, because I forgot that technically last week's would have been a Christmas special.
Ooh.
So, you want to talk some Christmas history? You want to talk some personal Christmas history, perhaps?
Well, do you know the story of the candy cane?
The story of the candy cane, like the fact that mythologically wise, it's supposed to be the canes for old elves.
What?
That's at least the story that I was told. Is that the idea of a candy cane is that it's the reason it's so small is because it's for elves.
No. I grew up on a different story.
Are you speaking of something different? Please do it for me.
Again, this is my disclaimer that I'm going to be putting into every single episode, Alex. I am not a historian. I'm actually not even remotely intelligent. I am a computer that is run by a. I am a computer that is run by a small hamster on a wheel. The hamster's name is Jeff, and he is 72 years old, and he's looking forward to retiring soon.
He's looking forward to retiring, also known as dying.
I mean, honestly. Pretty much.
And they are hamsters. Have you heard about what hamsters do? They're like lemmings. They're suicidal.
They really are. They really are suicidal.
They want to kill themselves. Anyways, the story of the candy cane.
So the story of the candy cane that I know, and I could be wrong, I often am, is that the candy cane was actually meant to represent the birth and the life of Christ.
Like a shepherd's hook.
Like a shepherd's hook as well. And this was a children's book that I read, a children's story, so this might just be how I was raised. But what I always grew up knowing is that the candy cane represents Christ, and the fact that it has the shape of a J, Jesus, funny. It represents the connection of the lowest man to finding out about Christ, the shepherd's hook.
Mm-hmm.
It represents his sacrifice in the red, and it represents him cleaning our sins in the white.
Interesting.
That is what I grew up believing. What do you know about these elves, Mr. Alex?
Now, see, the thing is that, Luke, I was raised in a bit more almost fantastical, acknowledging the fact that like Santa and stuff wasn't, accurate, but still knowing like a bunch of these myths and ideas and stuff like that. Speaking of which, we should probably get into the mythoses of Santa, because those are deep.
I'd love to learn. I know very little.
Yeah, but with the candy cane thing, it was just like an offhand thing I heard at church when I was very, very young, and it's the idea that the canes are for old retiree elves. And now I feel bad every time I eat a candy cane, or at least I did until I was like 15. And
you see,
like,
the elf.
I'm stealing a candy cane from an elf.
The elf that retired is now dead and has donated the cane to you.
Well, no, but like even after I turned 8 and I acknowledged the fact that like Santa Claus isn't real, and I fully came to terms with like, oh yeah, this is completely a myth. 8 or 6 or whenever you normally do it, I can't remember my age. I was still like, this is.
I believed in Santa Claus up till I was 11.
I feel bad for you.
Oh, I don't. I had a great time. I was happy.
I mean, yeah, it's fair enough. But
I haven't been happy in years.
I haven't been happy in years. uh, but yeah, that was my understanding of it. But according to the internet, the story of the candy maker in Indiana, who wanted to make a candy that would help us remember who Christmas is really about. So he made a Christmas candy cane. He incorporated several symbols of birth, ministry, and death of Jesus. So this is probably where you're getting your story from. Is this idea here? Uh, Interestingly enough, that we eat these and celebrate these on Christmas instead of Easter, in my opinion. Because again, I personally believe that Easter should get more rep.
I mean,
It is
if
the day the
you,
Lord died for us.
all right, it took me less than 3 minutes to do this, so I should be proud, I suppose. But let me put on my tinfoil hat, and I think it's because, I think it's because that Christmas is an easily commercializable holiday because of how much it connects to a time of the year when people want to be closer together. It's winter. Naturally, in historical times, people would gather around hearths and they'd get closer together anyway. It's something that's easily the message is easily damaged because you can still keep the heart of it and keep people who want to celebrate the true message happy while also commercializing it heavily. Whereas Easter is something that they would not want to give actual attention to because it's hard to connect to the normal to the average American. Easter
it's hard to
is
connect to anything besides Christianity.
exactly. While yes, you can have the Easter
Yeah.
Bunny, there's no like real mythos around it. The Easter Bunny doesn't have the same following that Santa does, at least
Yeah,
monetarily.
but also if you think about it, Christmas, or the time around Christmas, I should say, used to be like Winterfest in a lot of places, which is a very pagan religion, which is a very pagan festival. That's where you get a lot of the mythos of the Santa Claus and stuff like that. Though his name changed to Santa Claus because it's based off of Nicholas Claus, the saint.
Right.
But before that, in a bunch of these places, especially in these like Nordic places, they had, you'd fire up the hearth essentially and get around having strong drink and eating a lot of food, then enjoying the company of each other because it's too cold to go outside in that 9 feet of snow. So,
Speaking of strong drink, why don't I thank our sponsor, Charlie Mops?
we're not sponsored.
By Charlie Mops, the creator of the beautiful, wonderful, incredible item that I call anything that has hops in it. Thank you, Charlie Mops, and thank you so much for helping so many of us get through the cold winter seasons.
Real quick, speaking of hops, I cannot stand IPAs.
Why would you willingly drink an... Okay. Actually, to be 100% fair, which I feel like is important, I'll admit I had an IPA introduced to me recently, and it wasn't bad.
Was it not bad or was it good?
It was almost good, actually.
That's my point. Is that like, if you want something with that flavor profile, just drink a Guinness.
That's That's a completely different flavor profile. I would never.
Because it's got that
I'm actually
kind of...
a little enraged that you would compare Guinness to. I think I might have to kill you now.
No, but I'm saying like it's a full-bodied beer, but it has that kind of zesty note to it that like I find is overwhelming in an IPA. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Yeah. So if you want something that tastes far better and happens to be a beer, then just canned, bottled. The only difference is if you get it on tap, then it's better. Like innately.
Actually, I recently found out that there's a specific kind of Guinness that you can get that tastes exactly like it does on tap.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that nitro stuff?
Yep, my dad found it.
Or
Oh
is
my
that
goodness, that was crap. That's it goes down. It's like coffee. It's incredible.
Because part of the tap is like aerating it.
Yep.
So the nitro is just like a bunch of micro bubbles.
So I can definitely get behind having some of that.
Still super strange to me. Here, 1 second. I'm gonna look up who started putting nitro in drinks.
That's a good question.
So sorry for the dead space, everyone.
In this moment, I'd like to thank our secondary sponsor, a fantastic man who has provided a
We're
product
not
that
sponsored.
truly so many around the world are thankful for. I know I am. This man is a true. I mean, in some pieces of fiction, he's known as a saint, and really, I'm not saying that that should happen in real life, but I will say that they may have had a step in the right direction there. He's a truly clever and intelligent man, and he has provided a great deal of security and comfort to many around the world. I'd like to raise my glass to John Moses Browning for a moment
Hey.
and thank him for protecting the free world, both domestic and foreign. Thank you, John Moses Browning, and may you rest in peace.
Yeah, and before and after death.
Honestly. So, what did you find? What did you find, Alex?
So, apparently, it was done by a British chemist who figured out the carbon dioxide bit, and then someone else started doing coffee nitro and cold brew beer nitro, which was in Austin, Texas, of course, which is the only place that you can do any kind of innovation nowadays. And the idea of it is that it almost instantly chills the drink and aerates it like crazy. Because if you look at carbon dioxide, I learned this from a YouTube video. If you look at carbon dioxide, the bubbles are actually quite large. And they don't necessarily move into the slurry or whatever you want to call it fast, the beverage fast. And then they can very quickly escape. Nitrous oxide, however, is very cold. Therefore, all of the stuff is very tightly packed because, of course, when things are colder, they condense. And so, and again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not an expert on this either, but I am also paraphrasing what I remember. The idea is that you just get so much more of the nitrous into a drink than you could ever get carbon dioxide, and it's not so abrasive because they're tiny, rather than being big, bubbly soda chemicals. Not soda chemicals, soda bubbles. And then that also, like lightning, cools the drink because it's nitrous. It has to be cold.
Wow, that is actually genuinely fascinating.
Yeah, and then the bubbling and foaming effect is the nitrous trying to escape, and that's where you get your foamy head, probably on a well-packed Guinness.
That's another thing I love about Guinness. The foamy head manages to taste just as good as the beer does, which is really impressive.
Yeah. It's almost like when you make a proper Irish coffee by putting like the Irish cream on top of the coffee, and then you wind up with like a nice entry point and then the coffee bite.
That's such a wonderful feeling.
It's great. It's like the beer itself is its own style of cocktail because it has a floater on it already.
You really can't beat it. I love how our Christmas podcast is going at the moment.
Oh yeah, no, we're talking about booze. Yeah, it's awesome. Speaking of booze, mead. One moment.
I have not the experience of many others in mead, but I did try it recently, and I very much liked it.
I so very much want to taste this. I haven't been able to get my hands on it. Literally, let me search mead creation.
Oh, it's old. It's old, I'm pretty sure.
I know it's old. It's ancient.
It's like as old as wine.
Yeah, but it's not from the area that you'd get wine because grapes do not grow that northern. So the idea of mead is that it was this very rich. It also showed that you were very rich in like the Danish and Norwegian area, and like Finland and Sweden, of course. All of these areas that are so far north that they can't really grow grapes. Well, maybe not Sweden then, but they can't really grow grapes, and they're at like the wrong altitude for making wine and stuff like that. And so it's literally just fermented honey. And I have recently been making a lot of honey candy. And honey is the best damn thing we ever had on this planet.
Honey is God's gift. I mean, honestly.
It's like if sugar were not bad for you.
It really is. I mean, it doesn't go bad. I mean, I guess yes, before someone comes back, yes, it technically can go bad, but I mean, it takes forever. No.
Because even when it crystallizes like that and does all that stuff that like people are like, oh, it's bad honey, put it in a pot, like a saucepan, like get your glass mason jar of honey like you always should have, because of course you're getting your honey from either a store or like a local farmer's market. Because
always go for a local farmer's market.
Because then they actually have like the good proper, like this is blueberry honey harvested from blueberry bushes.
Remember, folks, more than any civil service can, get a community and you can protect yourself.
Yeah. But you get your good honey, and then you put it in a pot, and inside that glass jar you just raise it to like a low simmer, and then all of that crystallization just kind of melts, and then you have honey again,
Oh,
and it's incredible. It
it's
doesn't go
beautiful.
bad.
It really,
The
it
only thing
really
that does
is
go
a
bad
gift.
about it is that when you make honey candies like I've been making, then you wind up with the problem that if you keep them for too long in a partially warm area, they start turning back into honey.
This seems like a net positive. I see no downside to this.
Not really, because when you have it in a wrapper, it's like if a taffy were to melt.
Oh no. I'm beginning to see the issue.
So, I should note, I make taffy like honey candies. I don't make hard honey candies. I'm sure that if you were to add like that little tablespoon of sugar and make it into a hard candy, it wouldn't have this problem. But mine do, because it's just honey, and it's delicious. Speaking of which, if you come over recently, I will give you some.
Well, Alex, I just might have to do that. I don't know if I have the money to make that trek across the Yukon, but you know what? I'll see if I can do it this week.
Sweet goodness. Anyways, mead. Apparently, not really as used as we see it in video games. Like, in Skyrim, it makes sense because they have lower reasons for having so much mead. But for the most part, when it comes to actually living like the Viking-style life, you'd probably find a lot more ales.
I was about to say,
Much
ale,
like how,
ale seems a lot
yeah,
easier to make.
much like how in England you'd see a lot more beer and lagers than you would see wine, I feel. You about to say something?
Oh no, I was just it's interesting. Mead is seen because of how video games treat it. It's because it's how common it is. But having drank it and looked into a little bit of its history, and you probably know more than I do, the way it's made is very similar to wine, and that makes it surprisingly difficult to make.
Yeah, well, because rather than making it with crushed grapes, you're trying to make it with fermented bee juice.
So mead was enjoyed sparingly, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and by the very rich or by the people who are at the end of like a long raid were like, all right, we need mead.
Honestly,
Which is a very fun like way of thinking about it. Also, another great thing about mead and like Nordic culture, or not Nordic, Viking culture. Ever notice a drinking horn and the fact that it's incredibly difficult to like put on a table and have it just sit there?
yeah, I've noticed that. What was the plan around that?
A lot of people in like the drinking circles, this is not a historian thing, this is like a cocktail thing, they believe that the idea is that you're not supposed to put it down.
Oh,
It's one, a symbol of power because they decorate their drinking horns, but two, you'd pass it around the bar.
interesting.
You're not meant to put it down. You're meant to give it to somebody else, and then until the horn is emptied, and then you can put it down because then you're not going to spill anything.
That is really interesting. I like that.
Which makes for a great idea for like a story bit. You can have like a newcomer come, and then he tries to put down the horn, and someone looks at him all weird, like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing?
What are you doing? No, it's not going to stand up. Pass it to the next one."
That is interesting.
Give.
I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, and it like if you think about it for just a little bit of time, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure that there were other reasons for it, like the fact that it's incredibly not terribly difficult to make because you just kill an animal and then take its horn and then find a way to hollow it out.
Well, generally, goat horns works the best for that.
Because they hollow themselves, correct?
Yes, as well as the fact that you need a horn that you can clean the inside of, and so, it's not. They didn't really have a way to disinfect, but basically, they would treat it so that you wouldn't get bits of. Well, getting bits of bone in your drink kind of ruins the taste.
I see. Well, I was talking about the disinfecting.
You're very correct there.
The bits of bone in your drink, though, I'm sure that there's one guy who liked that. I'm sure that there has to be.
Yeah, he was the weird guy.
Yeah, but there has to be like one Viking that had like crooked teeth, like way more crooked than all of the others, who would intentionally make horns that had bone chips in them still.
Yeah, and then the other Vikings would go, Jeff, what are you, dude? Come on.
Okay, I find that super funny because I was just watching the Tom Scott series Citation Needed, and in one of the bits, the guy that they have that's a bit crazy is also called Jeff. And like I was watching another thing just like 2 days ago, and again another crazy dude persona was called Jeff. Is that just an easy name to come to? When
Well,
you think about, like, he's a little bit nuts, call him Jeff.
it's better than Richard.
Yeah.
The bar is not high.
The bar is not high. It's not necessarily low either, though.
True enough. True enough.
Like it's just like with the variation of names that we have in modern society.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Generation Alpha name list? Because it's abysmal.
You know what? Actually, you know what? I'm going to get a name list up right now. I'm going to get a name list up, and I'm going to start recommending.
I'm getting one up right now too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to start recommending to our. You get up the Generation Alpha name list. I'm going to get up a name list of people I recommend, of names I recommend our listeners name their children.
Not age, names. I'm a big dense idiot. Names list. Generation Alpha Wikipedia. Sure, why not? Is there a common names in this article? Of course, the end ends in the 19 pandemic.
Nobody ever names their children interesting names anymore. I mean, like biblical names are pretty much where it stops.
They're naming their children. Luke, you don't understand. They're naming their children interesting names. It's just bad.
Oh no!
It's
okay,
not good.
hit me with some of these.
I need to find a proper list. I'm only finding boomers.
Well, folks, I think I have some names you should give your children. Ziomara. Ratchak.
Came out of the gate swinging. All right, Generation Alpha baby name study, maybe?
Ethwin.
That one's not that bad. That sounds very Edwardian.
I like it. This is just so to spoiler alert to all my listeners. This is just a names list I have for D&D.
Oh, I see.
Which is
Very
wild
fun.
because it somehow manages to be less weird than the stuff Generation Alpha names their children.
Yeah, goodness gracious, get to the end of the study and show me the names. I just need a list.
Halgard.
People are naming their kids of Egypt.
You know what? It is better than naming their children after months, which is,
I think I saw
not to be
Margaret
moon.
as one of the highest ones.
Did you say Margaret?
Yes, like the Fell Omen.
As in the hit game series Dark
Elden
of Duty.
Bling. Dark of Duty.
Call of Souls.
I'm kind of surprised that Ari is a pretty low.
The Witcher, God of War.
Pretty low name for women. Carl with a K is pretty high for men, apparently.
That's actually a common name historically.
Yeah, but so is True. TRU.
I don't know how I feel about that one.
Nope. Neither do I. Salim is normal. Dior is not. Or Dior. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's D-I-O-R.
Dior?
Dior, maybe?
Like the
Royal as a
brand?
name for girls, apparently.
Dior is a brand.
Dior is a brand? Wait.
Google Dior right now. Google Dior.
Wait. Dior.
It's actually a very, very famous brand.
Enjoy complimentary shipping. Official online store.
Welcome to the modern world, buddy.
It's a fashion
I hate it
store.
here.
But it's named after a guy called Christian Dior. So Dior is a last name.
Yes.
Yeah. But this mentions it as a first name.
You are asking for a lot of consistency and intelligence from generations.
Friggin' what baffles me most, of course it's not an error. This is a terribly made website. What baffles me most, I think, is the fact that looking at I need to zoom in. These are small. Looking at the unisex names, all of the ones that are unisex but are used for like female are super weird. Like Savin. Unless this is meant to be from like...
What was that one?
It's Sevyn. Unless this is meant to be like a world study. Which it doesn't say that it is. It sounds more like it's a United States. Yeah, it sounds like it's a bit more of a United States study. That is the highest popularity. Is Savin.
I might use that. That's a pretty good fairy name.
It sounds great for like a mythological time. Apparently, also the highest popularity unisex name for boys of Generation Alpha is just Everest.
That's not a
Great. Name your kid after a mountain.
I mean, it's not a terrible one. Everest, compared to some of the stuff I've heard. Look, my baseline, does it have a hyphen in
Name
it?
my
If
daughter
not, it could be
Mariana.
worse.
I'm going to name my daughter Mariana, and I'm going to arrange her marriage with a kid named Everest.
I think that's child abuse.
There'll be the highest and lowest points on the planet.
That's definitely child
Also-
abuse.
It's not child abuse, it's just Indian.
Oh my gosh.
Apparently also Lennox, which sounds remarkably close to Linux, is very popular. This is so strange. It's literally Linux.
Lennox is an
but they-
actual person from history.
From history?
Yes, he was an American who fought in the Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, the problem is that that's a name on the rise for females.
I got nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's super weird because you look at a lot of the men's names. Hendrix apparently spiked a little bit, which makes sense. Because, Jimi Hendrix. But you look at a lot of the men's names and they seem rather normal, and then you look at a lot of the female names and they seem very strange. And also like they could be very easily made into some kind of shorthand name for like, bullying and stuff like that, which is really strange to me because a lot of the idea of Generation Z is the fact that all of our kids were bullied. Oh no, what do we do?
I don't
What do
think
we do?
people
We gotta protect our
plan
children.
for bullying when they name their children.
If you name your kid Monroe and don't expect them to be called Moron, then you're an idiot.
Okay, first of all, shut up. Second of all, I don't have a point.
If you name your kid Okalech and don't expect her to be called Wood, you're an idiot. This is literally the second highest, fastest rising baby names with creative spellings. The capita of this is just over 8,000 females, and it is O-A-K-L and then Leah, essentially. So it's Oaklea, which sounds fine until you start breaking it down by the syllables. But it's just so strange.
You know what I don't understand? Why don't people name their kids after planets? Mars is a cool name.
Finally, we get back to normal names. Friggin' also apparently the Jax in the same spelling as Jax from Mortal Kombat has been on the rise, which is funny to me.
That is interesting.
I am honestly surprised that we're coming up with very strange sounding names that do not sound like they came from video games.
I know.
Like,
I
I'm
would
gonna be
have
completely honest about that.
I would have expected a lot more Alduins and Balgriffs.
And like maybe some people that are like huge Lord of the Rings fans naming their kids like Gimli, and keeping it simple with like Sam, or going somewhere like Gimli, because Gimli's still like a perfectly fine name. Frodo would make less sense in my opinion.
I'm looking for those Gondorian and Rohirrim names. Where's my Aragorns? Where are my Elisars?
It would actually be kind of fun to meet a guy named Aragorn.
That'd be really cool.
Especially if you didn't know anything about the book series.
Also, like, the name Isildur. That sounds so awesome. Why does nobody...
Yeah, it does. And no one's stolen it from Tolkien.
I mean, like, Sindarin names sound incredible. I don't know why people don't use them.
Yeah. Friggin'... It's insane, the direction that we go to try and be unique, if you get my point. I don't know why I still have this Christian Dior brand open. Close that
Because you
tab.
really need some of that stuff. I mean, come on, you got to get some quality
I need
skincare.
some of that good fashion. It's very strange the extents that I feel this generation will go just to try and be unique. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's either trying to be unique or trying to be a victim.
we've gone from trying to we wanted to avoid the problem. It happens a lot with generations. We try to avoid the previous problem. We overcorrect and create a new one. And
Yeah,
hopefully,
yeah, that
at
makes
some
sense.
point, a generation after us figures out the happy medium, and they get to be decently happy. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted us to be unique, to be willing to be individuals. But instead of saying be okay with being an individual, they said make sure you're an individual, and it went the wrong way.
Yeah, and I feel like uh, another problem is that I I think I've already told you my opinion on participation trophies, and I think that do you hold the same idea that they're kind of stupid?
I
Actually, they're
think
pretty stupid.
I think there is a very good feeling a person gets when they are told that they have achieved excellence in something. And I think that the positive effect that has on a child is greater than the negative effect it could have on another for feeling bad that they didn't get that. Hopefully, it spurs them on to try harder. I know that's
Yeah,
what it did for
because
me, and
yeah, that's what it did for me too.
I think that the opportunity to do better should be given more often. I think rather than adding participation trophies, you should give more opportunities for excellence.
Yeah. Like open up more contests or stuff like
Exactly.
that.
Make it so that there's more chances to get that award, which makes it so that those
Rather than diluting the pool with a bunch of worthless trophies.
exactly. Then there are more trophies out there, but rather than it being because everyone gets a trophy, it's more because everyone had a chance to earn a trophy in many different fields, and they had the chance to show their quality.
Yeah.
With that, I think you'll find that you'll deal with the fact that, and of course, the obvious problem with that is that would require a school to spend more money on something that isn't overinflating the superintendent's salary rather than paying their teachers. But that's just me.
Wow.
Um, look,
Problem is, I agree with you.
the school system has been broken for a very long time, and it's the government's fault for allowing the funds to be mismanaged so titanically that at this point, I'm almost, and this is coming from someone whose mother is a teacher, I almost wish that they would cut funding just so that teachers could go and find jobs where they'll get paid what they deserve. At the very
And
least,
also,
I wish teachers were treated properly, and I wish that the government would get out of schools. But I know that's not a possibility, so I'm accepting that in my heart.
I'd also like to note, listeners, that this is not coming from me, the homeschooled boy. This is actually coming from someone who I believe you were raised in public schools, right?
I went to
Like,
public school that my mother worked at, and then I went to another public
yeah.
school. For both middle school and high school was the same school, which I think that it had a positive effect on me. I think if more schools did that, it'd be great because that means I had 7 years at the same school with the same teachers and the same friends, and I have to say, I hated that school, loved it at the same time. I had one of the best choir teachers. My favorite teacher of all time was a choir teacher who still to this day has a positive effect on my life. I found
No,
out
that's
recently
based.
he's a Christian, and I'm very proud of him for how well he hid that the entirety of the time he was in. My parents and I would go back and forth on whether or not he was a Christian because we just could not tell. Because
Oh, that's very funny.
he acted the way of a Christian. He had the decency about him. He had a Christ-focused lifestyle, and he always managed to get at least one or two Christian songs into our repertoire for choir. But he never ever revealed if he was if he was like a Christian, and at the same time he always would just give the excuse of, well, I'm the choir director, I can put whatever songs I'd like in. And he'd also, I remember at one point he made a very clever comment when I was oh my gosh, I think it was an overnight trip with the choir group. Because we were talking about places we want to visit and places we like, and someone was talking about how they were from Texas and they never want to go back, and I just quietly said to myself in the circle we were sitting in, why would somebody not want to go back to Texas? Like, well, that sounds awesome. And then he leans over and he says very quietly, Democrats. And then he just goes back into talking, and I
Oh.
was floored for like 20 minutes after that. But yeah, public
To be
schools are
fair,
very
that
broken.
guy could go back. He'd just have to live in Austin,
That's true. But
which has become the weird hub of freedom and democratic viewpoints.
I think that's why Austin's such a hub for not just Democrats, but for leftists and for for people who enjoy safety over freedom in general because they get both. They get the freedom.
yeah.
They get the safety they want, but because it's in Texas, they also get to taste the freedom. They get to taste true liberty without having to
I can
actually
have
risk
my
anything.
shorty and my e-bike at the same time.
Which is impressive. I have to give them that. Austin is a very rare hub where in the center of
Shove that now.
in like the top 30% of free states. I will not go above that. You know my opinions on Texas. But Austin is the California of Texas, which is hilarious because that means they get both, which is impressive, I have to admit.
Well, it's also where all the Californians are moving, so it only makes sense.
True. The Babylon Bee has a great series on Californians moving to Texas.
Yeah, dear viewer, if I might give you one point of advice, when you move to an area because you dislike the area that you're living in, while you're moving, reflect on yourself and think, did I make some of the choices that might have led that area into the decay that it has risen into? And if the answer is yes, then change your mode of thinking before moving into your new house. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of piss in the pool for everyone else.
And there's nothing wrong with moving to a new area. If you want to move somewhere that you feel is more free and more comfortable for you, more power to you. I respect you for it. Just try and not repeat the same mistakes that led your previous home into becoming what it was today.
Yeah, because then you just spread cancerous death across the U.S.
Exactly.
Or anywhere, actually. You wind up running into that in Germans moving to Britain. There we go. I was about to say Britons moving to Germany. But that's the old term for the Angles.
Yep.
You wind up with that with... I think the only country in Europe right now that is kind of safe from all of that is Sweden, because Sweden has incredibly strict border policies.
Sweden is...
They're Sweden.
Are you confusing with Poland?
I might be confusing it with Poland. But no, I'm talking about like
Sweden is the opposite.
Contamination through like immigration.
Again, Sweden is the opposite. Also, disclaimer: we're not calling immigrants contaminants. Please, no one think we are.
Yeah, no. I was talking about not the immigrant themselves, but the
I
viewpoints
understand,
they have.
Alex. I do understand. I'm just doing a nice little disclaimer
I'm clarifying for the
some
viewer.
of those out there who like to look at the report button as a target. I know you're there. I know you
Let's
are.
hope they're like me and they have terrible eyesight. Anyways, yeah. I think that you are right with Poland. The only people that have really strictly kept to their kind of fundamental principles throughout all of this. That's what happens when you're in EU, but it's fine.
I don't know. For being in the EU and NATO, Poland's done a pretty good job of holding on.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is that like with everyone else, the idea of like the free travel between countries and stuff like that. It's
true.
It's turned into a bit of a problem for some people.
That's crazy, bro. I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think that's why Brexit was a thing. But again, not well versed in foreign politics. But actually not well versed in most earthly politics.
Take a history class, kids. It'll save your life.
Yeah, there is that popular saying that I need to search now, which is that those who read history are doomed, and those who don't read history are doomed to repeat it, and
those who read history are doomed to watch others repeat it.
Read it are doomed to see it repeated. Yeah. 1 second, I need to look up who wrote that.
I don't know who it was who said this, but I always liked it because it was something along the lines of history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme.
Yeah, doomed to repeat it, according to 3 sources. Who wrote it, though? Oh, it was by a philosopher called George, and I'm probably going to butcher this last name, Santayana. Santayana, if you want to decide on your own pronunciation. The original form read, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Interesting. So in a much more philosophical rather than poetic. Yeah, poetic way of writing it. But
yeah, it's interesting.
still,
no one ever listens to the historians.
Yeah, very impactful. But I think that you're right about the history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Because that falls in line with a lot of like what Solomon says of like, there is nothing new under the sun. We will never meet a new calamity. There will just be more interesting ways of doing it. like coming up with the same root problem, but finding a more fantastical way of dealing with this same root problem.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean? So you're going to run into that, and time again. We've strayed, again, very far off course.
I think
I feel bad for naming the last episode Astro Rabbit Holes, because I feel like all of these are going to be named as Astro Rabbit Holes.
maybe the show should be named Astro Rabbit Hose.
No. You can't fit that into a 4-letter word.
You can believe in your... Astro Rabbit Hole. It could be ASR... RH? ASRH?
ASRH? ASRH?
True. Oh, but, another thing that I've been thinking about. Wow, I've lost it. I don't know what it was, and I just had it. I had it in my hand.
Anyways, on to the Christmas episode. While you hold that thought, the mythology of Saint Nicholas, because that is, of course, Father Christmas. Interestingly enough, a lot of stuff that he does lines up with certain indigenous peoples of Scandinavia's like almost ritual. So, like, if it snows really, really heavily, it might not be Scandinavia. I might be thinking about somewhere more northern, like the Sami people and stuff like that. But
more northern than Scandinavia?
I might be really, really botching my geology. Not geology.
Geology.
Geography. Sorry.
Your grasp of the English language never fails to amaze me.
At geometry. I just thought about that Stephen He bit. It's so good. Anyways, Scandinavian Aborigines would wear this like red hat in order. It was, of course, wool lined because it's very, very cold. But also the red hat would essentially be an identifying mark to see another one in the snow. And if their house snowed over too much, then they would enter through the chimney.
That is fascinating.
That is an idea for like where the hat of Santa Claus came from, because that was in popular culture before even Coca-Cola took Santa Claus, trademarked him, and then crushed him into their little branding pocket. That is the reason, by the way, that you see Santa Claus wearing like the full red getup and the big burly belly. He's normally actually in older depictions shown as not a fat man, but a very well-built man.
But the problem is, well-built men don't drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah, well-built men don't drink Coca-Cola. Morbidly obese men drink Coca-Cola.
The tragedies of our time.
Speaking of which, on a video I have coming up, I had to look up a bunch of Monster ads. And frickin', it's so weird because, of course, their slogan is "Release the Beast," which is, I feel, a great slogan because, you know, it's the idea of getting such a caffeine high that you can't stop but be powerful. But a lot of their ads have essentially bodybuilders and boxers and like wrestlers as their brand deals, which makes great sense for like a brand deal. But I cannot imagine a wrestler drinking a Monster Energy, because I've seen what is in the ingredients list of a Monster Energy.
Taurine.
And I'm like, would someone who cares this much about their body actually drink this?
I don't think someone who cares that much about their body would allow a single drop of Monster Energy to fall upon their skin. Like, if
I'm pretty
gonna
sure
be,
that those guys run off of caffeine like in coffee.
I want to be honest, looking
that's
at
a way better way of getting it.
what's in Monster, from a technical standpoint, we shouldn't be letting that anywhere near our bodies.
Here, I have 62 cans next to me right now. I'll just check the ingredients list really quick.
And this is coming from somebody who
You've seen my desk.
unapologetically actually likes Red Bull, which I'll admit is also terrible.
Okay, I have a problem with Red Bull though, and it's the fact that it does taste like urine to me.
It tastes good.
You like the taste of piss.
You okay? That's Monster though. You like the taste of acid.
No, it's
You like
not.
the taste of acid reflux.
Okay, then you have some kind of problem if you're getting acid reflux from these things. The thing is that the Monster Ultra series is the best thing to come out of Monster for a long time. Like,
Nothing good has come out of Monster. The word best has no meaning here.
Well, no, there is a good thing. There is the low carb monster.
It's not even low carb.
So
It's
for those,
Monster.
no, it is. It is. Rather than using sugars, they use the healthy variant of sugar alcohols, and those, when are being broken down by our body, are treated as fiber.
$50 says they just bribed the health department.
I mean, maybe, yeah, but I don't know. I stay on ketosis when I'm drinking that, so yeah.
I got no
But
argument
the things inside of a monster, it's not necessarily concerning, but it's just a lot of things that you ever hear that old saying where it's if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it,
then. Yeah.
which just like of course makes everyone not eat French food. I think that's the origin of that saying, was to get people to stop eating French cuisine,
Which is also a good thing to do. Don't eat French food. It's bad
yes,
for you.
do not eat escargot. But it's got a lot of that syndrome to it, where it's like, I can't pronounce this. Should I be putting it in my body? My dog is going crazy because someone just arrived. But so you can do that though with any kind of carbonated drink.
And it's still
Is
right.
that- Yeah, I can't pronounce this. Should I put it in my body?
No.
Probably not. But yeah.
So the commercialization of Santa Claus is where we were, I think.
Right. And Coca-Cola making people morbidly obese. It's interesting though, because if you look at the Finnish, Norwegian, and Danish understanding of Santa Claus, apparently he does not live in the North Pole in those depictions. He instead lives in Finland, in like northern Finland.
What?
Which I find very funny.
Wait, so
Yeah.
he's just some guy you can find?
He's just some Finn. Yeah. But that makes a lot of sense, because in those here, let me pull up Google Maps. Or not Google Maps. I should have pulled up Google Earth. Gosh dang it. 1 second. This will take a moment.
Wait, so in Finland, Santa Claus is just some guy you can find?
Well, he lives in like that northern part of Finland that you really can't live in. It's like how if you go too far north in Canada, you just die.
The only good thing about Canada.
It's very similar to that. Let me find. Goodness, Google Earth, why do you have so many clouds? All right, so that's England. There we go. Sweden, Norway, Finland. Yeah, it's in this northerny bit of Finland, which is just underneath of the Norwegian border currently. And the idea is that he lives there because if you look at, and I think that this makes a lot of sense personally, because if you look at Norway and Finland and stuff, they live very close to what would be called the North Pole, and so they probably understood that you cannot live on that ice rock. You know what I mean?
True enough.
Like, if you
True
went
enough.
there, you would not be able to live.
This is very
And also,
accurate.
it makes a lot of sense for him to live in Finland, because Finnish people, like, historically, are understood to be the nice people in that area.
Which is saying something, because the Finns...
They were not a part of the raiding Danes. They were not a part of the Norwegian Vikings.
They dealt with the Mongolians pretty well.
Yeah, but, like, they were not the let's go kill the rest of the planet people.
This is true. That was just everyone around them.
Yeah, like a lot of the time in history. Again, not a historian, but
The Russian war upon Finland. Thank you, God, for Simoheyaha. The name which I
is
definitely
that
just butchered.
Is that the White Death?
Yep.
Yeah, boy, make a Finnish guy mad and he will kill your entire army.
I still enjoy... I still
I
adore...
need to look up White Death confirmed kills.
something 500 something. You know, he got shot in the face and he kept fighting after that.
You know that the bullet that shot him in the face was a stray round?
No one could hit him on purpose. It had to be an accident.
They did it accidentally. He continued fighting. He lost the mobility in his left jaw, and thus had like a sloping mouth for the rest of his life, but he kept going with irons and nothing else. Uh,
You know what he did when when the war was over?
what?
He went back to target shooting.
Nice. This man is a legend. He was only 5 feet tall. He lived as a quiet farmer before the war.
He is not a short king. He is a short warlord.
Yes, he is. And the crazy thing about this, because I know that some people will probably not know about the White Death, the way that he worked was that, of course, he stayed with the platoon during the nights and stuff like that, but he would go out in like the early day. He would pack his mouth and he would pack his gun with snow, and then he'd cover himself in like a snow type of ghillie suit where he just piled snow over his body, and then he would just sit there and wait. And he wouldn't use a scope because that's scope glare. He would only use irons. He shot from hundreds of feet away, and he just kind of knocked people down on their way to the front line. And yeah, it's fantastic because he just sat there and meticulously picked off people.
Not
As
people,
they,
communists.
Communists, correct. Communists. As my father said, there's only 2 people that are good to kill. That's aliens and communists. No, wait, aliens, communists, and Nazis. That was the thing.
Just aliens and statists.
What?
Aliens and statists.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. He has 505 confirmed kills, but I believe his list of unconfirmed kills reaches into like the 800s. I can't remember. I'm finding this all out on the first thing in a Google search, by the way.
He is truly incredible.
Yeah, this guy is like a legend among men, and it's incredible. Anyways, how do we keep going from the commercialization of Santa Claus to just Finnish warlords?
I don't know what it is about us, but we just cannot keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, he's Santa in Norwegian, Danish, and Swedish and Finnish culture, and I'm not so sure about like Western Russia, but maybe I wouldn't put it past them because Russia's so huge. He is a old man who lives in Finland and has a workshop. And in other countries, he uses slaves to make the toys. That's a popular bit. My dog is going crazy again. That's a popular bit from, I think, News Radio. But yeah, and he makes the toys with the elves in Finland and then distributes them about the world, which I find very funny because it's just some Finn at that point. My dog is incredibly loud. I apologize if that's getting picked up. I think it is. But yeah, and then I want to know who came up with the fact that he lives on the North Pole.
That's a good question. Where did that come from? Hyperborea. Hyperborea. That is a reference that no one will get except me. That's sad. Have you heard of Hyperborea, Nick?
What's Hyperborea?
It is the idea that the Nazis built a secret base in the North Pole and that they're still there to this day. It's very funny.
Oh, no. Conspiracy again. I'm going to have to look that up after this.
Don't worry. Anyway, I'm curious who came up with that idea because my whole life I've never actually thought about who first was the one who said, St. Nick actually has a timeshare, just 60 to 70 feet south of the North Pole. The pole, literally the pole. I'm not going to give you any more details because technically every direction is south from that pole.
Yeah. So what I was brought to is actually rather interesting. St. Nicholas of Myra.
What?
He's sorry. I had to accept something from a family member. He's Saint Nicholas of Myra, and he apparently lived in a Roman town located in what is now Turkey. So, he's actually a rather southerner for someone who lived on the North Pole, which I imagine is like someone from Florida moving to Canada.
What?
Because if you're used to Turkey climates, then you're used to like.
History and culture's history. American culture is very strange, especially modern culture.
Yeah. So, sorry. I'm trying to read this and get people to stop being noisy. I'm gonna cut that. So, oh yeah. Also, the idea of Krampus and like the lumps of coal, that's a lot darker than a lot of people give it credit for. That's like a grim fairy tale level of dark. But the one thing I hate about internet essays is one, how the essay writer tries to make like a parasocial relationship with you almost every time, and two, how they never get to the point. It's like a terrible YouTube video. Who lived
That
in a
isn't
Roman
cool.
town located in West now Turkey. Oh, it's thanks to a cartoonist called Thomas Nast. Interesting. According to Mashable, the Arctic was seen as a bit of a. Oh, okay. The Arctic was seen as a bit of a fantasy during the mid 1800s, largely thanks to all of the expansions held to the locations, none of which were completed until 1909, whose known place of constant snow. Okay, so it's the idea that he came up with it because he's a cartoonist, and as an artist I can understand this, because of the fact that the North Pole seemed so fantastical. And like the expansions into the Arctic and Antarctic would of course spark something like that in a lot of the populace. And so he came up with, oh, maybe it is where all of the toys are made. And then he started selling that to children. I'm going to look up Thomas Nast now, because that is a very interesting idea. I will say everything that I just said was abduction, so it's probably not true.
Yeah,
Thomas Nast.
it's really interesting the way it's not the word is deify. I guess fantastilized isn't right either. I don't know what the word is. Mystify. Thank you. We mystify places that are seemingly beyond our reach. Even though now we've stepped upon the North Pole, we still mystify it to ourselves, similar to the way we mystify planets with sci-fi.
Well, yeah, but it's the same thing with like Alan Quatermain and him going into the deep dark Africa. You've heard about Alan Quatermain, right?
I know little. I'd love to hear more.
It's a pulp series. I forget who it's written by, but the idea is that it came out just after we figured out it was a quinine that was the thing. It's whatever stopped malaria. Quinine. One second.
Take your
It's
time.
probably not quinine. It's probably not quinine. Oh, no, it is. Yay! I got it right. Biology, kicking in. Alan Quatermain, the idea of his pulp stories came out right after we had like discovered quinine, so we could start going into the deeper and darker parts of Africa. And by darker, I mean like more towards the center, like imagining Africa as like a cave. And we could start venturing to the heart of Africa. And so he would go on these crazy Indiana Jones style adventures. And in fact, Indiana Jones is based off of Alan Quatermain. And it's because of the fact that we can now do this that the writer was writing about the fantastical basis of, Africa, because no one had been there yet, or at least no one from a kind of European or I don't want to use the term westernly civilized. That would be the term.
Careful, you don't want
I
the
didn't want to use
Russians
the
to
term
get angry at
civilized
us.
because what?
You don't want the Russians to get angry at us.
Well, no, I didn't want to use the term civilized because there are entire African nations inside of that area. But essentially, anyone from the West who would write histories or would do archaeological digs in these places, stuff like that. First time that they were going into places like that. So, of course, this guy wrote the Atom Quantum idea. And it's a guy who, like Indiana Jones, travels around and finds adventure because it's a place on Earth that is veiled in such mysticism that we can finally crack into. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If any of that made sense.
vaguely. You know what? We could put a pin in this and come back to it next podcast as we are hitting our hour mark.
We are hitting our hour mark. Real quick, I would like to just tap onto the Christmas North Pole dude. He was a German-born American and a cartoonist of education of not educational, editorial cartoonist, often considered to be the father of the American cartoon. So I would like to dig into him later for the. That can actually be the talking point for the next podcast beginning. That won't be that bad of an idea.
I'd agree. I'd very much agree.
Anyways, that's been the show. I've been Alex. That's been Luke. And yeah, this is 1720 Star AM. And if you don't hear from us next week, you probably got your radio fixed. See you later.
Adios.